Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to check out a creator request, which is where a smaller band gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their music. Today we have one for a band called Toumaï. Hey, Critical Reactions. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate your YouTube React channel. As a young composer, 30, I'm also 30 something, so young composers all around. I think it's important to share about music that we hear every day, and I'm glad to see YouTube discover metal bands I love. Reacting or analyzing music composition and arrangements, just like you do. I really liked your Haken, Leprous, and Dream Theater reacts. If I contact you, it's because I'm part of a little French metal music group called Toumaï, who we will release our second album this next year, so it comes out in March. We have 3 more months for that. Totally independent, so we're thinking, you interested in reacting to our first single, A Walk in Abnormal? Let's do it. Let's check this out. So we have the band Toumaï, Walk in Abnormal. A bit dancier than I was expected for a metal band, but this is fun. So what did we start in 7 and we went to 5? Yes, the lightness of the drums. There's obvious traditional musicianship in our pianist.
Scene. Focus on the screen. Part it over. Action. Oh, hey, what I'm here. I'm not okay. I wanna live. I'm worrying.
Got those offbeat accents there to make it kind of have that lightness to it. Massive key shift right there. like the third different idea we've had in 5. Interesting, rising and falling in parallel. Bringing back the original idea. Well, before I forget, I gotta make a note of this. What was that? March? March 23 Toumaï. Alright, now that is set in stone, so I don't forget it. Because something tells me, come March, it's going to fly under my radar. I'm going to need a reminder to go out and seek this out. I'm sold. I have no criticisms for this. You guys are solid. If everything else on the album is like this compositionally and production wise, you have a solid album on your hands. All I could do is sit here and enjoy it. You know, you guys started out completely blew me away. You're like, we're a metal band. Check out our metal music. And I'm like, okay. And you start off with like this dancey piano line. Totally caught me off guard. But you found a way to use it, not only just to create expectations and then undercut them, but also to utilize it in your music. A lot of metal bands, whenever they start out with something like this, especially in the more progressive fields, it's an isolated intro. It is something to be jarring against the metal part, and you didn't choose to go that route. You said, you know what, we're gonna have this rhythmic piano thing, and we're gonna incorporate it into the riff. It's going to be part of the music. It's not just a segregated intro that's gonna slam up against when we bring the guitars in. It's part of the music, and I love that so much, that synergy there. And this is something that comes up all throughout this track, is the synergy. You obviously have two sides of musical inspirations here. There's a lot of what I hear is new metal. I hear some System of a Down. I hear some of Korn's later stuff once they started getting more radio friendly. I even hear a little bit of old school Linkin Park in here at times. And it is just so masterfully paired with this more traditional, almost classical elements to it. A lot of the metal stuff, the guitar work, the bass work, the vocals, all feel fairly rooted in what I would say is inspirational stuff, iterative music, wearing your inspirations on your sleeve and putting your own spin on the music that has influenced y'all. But when it comes to the drumming, it might be the same case here as well, but I hear two sides of drumming here. One is more of a classically trained side, and one is a self-taught, mimicking the influences side. And it's really cool to hear both of that. Then we get to the pianist, and that's just straight up classically trained piano work right there. If the person is self-taught, mind blown. That is not the read that I get off of them. There's so many elements in there that feel closer tuned to being trained traditionally than self-taught autodidactically, which is a really cool word. I don't know if anyone knows that. Autodidactic, it's to teach yourself. It's just a cool word. Anyway, Um, but yeah, it's just like the whole song is this perfect blending between this more traditional side of music, which focuses on like melodies and harmonies and stuff, and then just that metal side, especially like I said, I get a lot of 2000s new metal in here, which I'm personally a huge fan of. I get a lot of new metal in here that's very texture based, right? It's about the rhythms and the sounds of the music more so than the notes themselves. And just finding a perfect medium ground between all of this, sometimes balancing it expertly in a single section, and other times leaning fully into one side and contrasting it with leaning fully into another in a different section, and it's just all done so perfectly. I think my favorite part in here, not to just credit any of the other work that went into this, because this was a specific highlight for two people. It's that piano solo with the very light, intentional drumming. It was like a minute and a half, 2 minutes into the track. Absolutely love this, not just because it contrasts so heavily with everything else around it. We went, we had to get to the guitars and some heavy stuff prior to it, and then we went to some heavy stuff after it, and there's screaming and stuff. But just because it's this moment of really pure melodic writing, very intentional. Each note seems hand picked because of its purpose as a note against the notes around it. Each hit on the drum is hand picked because of what it represents, not because we're trying to lay down a rhythmic pattern. There's a melodic element to the drumming, and the way that these two play off of each other rhythmically and through their ideas is just so gorgeous. And of course, it's trapped between all of this chaotic textural music writing. It's just, yeah, I loved it. I loved every bit of that. Now, the playfulness in the music isn't just mixing these two styles, but there's also a lot of rhythmic playfulness in here. In fact, I think we started off with an alternating time signature, which I didn't get a chance to pick up on. We were working with groups of three, so I think we were doing like a 6/8, then maybe like a 7/8, and alternating these two. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't quite pick up on it, but I did pick up on the second time signature that came in, which was five, a 5/4 possibly. And this idea of five actually crops up a lot in this track. You guys love working with pockets of five. Um, and a lot of it plays into the accents, the rhythmic accent that you utilize often, which is accenting 2, 4, and 5. Or occasionally 1, 3, and 5, which leads us right back into the 1. The idea, though, is that it feels like symmetrical accenting, where we have no accent, accent, no accent, accent. But every once in a while, you toss in two accents back to back. And it bleeds through a lot of these sections. It is an idea that you guys absolutely love utilizing. And I get it. It's a little bit disjointed, but it's still dancey. It walks that line between accessibility, palatability, and complication. It's also very playful. So, like, I totally get why you use it so much. It's a fun idea. Um, is there anything else I want to touch on? The vocals. I mean, what can I say about the vocals? Just a huge fan of the variety in the vocal work. There's cleans, there's harshes, there's different kinds of harshes. You utilize a lot of mouth shapes to achieve different textures and pitches in your harshes. It's very playful. It's very energetic. I think that's the big word for the vocal work. It's energetic. Anytime that things could be dying down in energy, or just even things could be getting stale. You've you've used the same idea for 3 syllables. That's too many. Time to change a voice. And I just love that unpredictability and energy behind it. Um, it reminds me of, I don't know who it reminds me of. I'm just glad it exists. I'm glad whatever your inspiration is, I'm glad that those are your inspirations, because your vocal style is just exactly what I like in heavier music. And I guess the unspoken heroes I haven't really talked about yet too much. the guitarists, the bassist and the guitarist. Um, a lot of their work is textural, especially compared to what the pianist is bringing to the table, but it's really important to bring that balance. It's not to say that they don't work with melodic ideas or chordal ideas, it just doesn't seem to be what their specific role is in most sections of this track. I'm not trying to speak for the band as a whole, I've only heard 5 minutes of your music, right? But in this track, a lot of it tends to be textural, which brings that heavy metal aspect that contrasts so well with the pianist's melodic component. But what I absolutely love is how when you do dig into something a bit more melodic, when you're really focusing on notes rather than how a riff feels or sounds, you guys go to explore some really interesting ideas. I really like that tapping section that we had where you had your root note and you would tap against that, changing the pitch. And what's really cool is that the speed that you were playing actually created an illusion of dyads, which gave us these really cool musical relationships in each of those four picks that you had on your right hand. And it just created a really nice flow. It was interesting too, is that this was a really dark section, and then as I already talked about the contrast, we shifted to a piano driven section, which lightened the mood a little bit. And you guys have key changes all over the place. And it's what I love. It's so unpredictable, and I love that in music. It could be a novelty. The more you listen to a song, the more predictable it gets, right? That's just how things go. But as a first time listen, I really love that unpredictability in music. I like to have that idea of not knowing what comes next. The more you listen to music and the more that you start to dig in critically and pick up patterns, you start to see more patterns, music becomes more predictable. It's probably why I tend to lean more towards proggy-ish music, because they tend to be less predictable. It's what sounds, I don't want to say sounds better to my ears, but is more interesting to my ears. And you guys absolutely, and the thing is, you walk that fine line too. Like I could still find, I think people who aren't even into prog metal might still enjoy this because you kind of walk that line between just really good groovy metal and having interesting changes to the formulas. Um, so yeah, you walk that line between accessibility and complexity, which I've already said about another aspect. You guys are just nailing that component in your composition. Um, and then the bass, man. I love the bass tone. The bass tends to play what the guitars are doing a lot of the time. It kind of get hidden in the mix. They're just that punchy low end where the brighter end of the guitars really dominates the sound a little bit. Not a bad thing. A lot of well, music in general, but metal is produced that way. But that moment you guys gave the bassist to shine, the bassist got chops, and I wish I heard more of that. I know it doesn't really fit with what was going on in majority of this track. It was really about contrasting ideas. But if you ever get a little gutsy and you want to put in a third layer, you have your keyboards, your guitars, and then have like a moving bass line that's not replicating what the other two are doing. You want to go for a little bit of three-way counterpoint. I suggest trying your hand at it and see where it takes you. Um, I know in more of the rhythmic, punchier sections, you really want everybody to be in unison. I totally get it in those moments, but there are times I'd love to hear the bass just doing its own thing. Maybe bump it up a little in the EQ so it can be heard. Not too much. You don't want it to overpower everything else. The thing about having so many moving lines is you got to balance it. But I would love to hear the bassist just given a bit more moments to say, "Hey, look what I can do!" Just like some sick stuff. Um, So yeah, I'm gonna take a moment, hit the lyrics real quick, and we'll see what's going on in this song lyrically. I'm not going to pretend I have a strong read on these lyrics. Uh, they're speaking about something. The couple of lines that stand out to me is 7 billion people swarming, 46% are crawling. It's a very interestingly specific number, 46%. It says, what a waste, but the bigger it gets, the better. So this is about the Earth, I would assume, or possibly humanity. Um, but I couldn't quite figure out what this stanza was about. And after this, we have a line that says, "I am the wicked, self-inflicted pain." So I'm like, okay, so maybe this is the personification of some sort of evil in the world. Maybe it could be greed, something. Or maybe we're just looking at a supernatural story and, this is some larger than life, demon or god or something. But I never really got an answer to any of that. The final stanza says, "I'm fed up with the ugly, the obscene, the sordid. There is light ahead of us. Heads up to the world. We got all the time." And that makes me think that this is just a song about how if the world is a stage, right now it seems like we're in the middle of a tragedy. But that the end of the story is more positive than it feels right now. We just have to get there. That's kind of where I'm getting at. And it's interesting too that it's possible that this was put in my mind, the idea of a stage and play, because the second stanza says, "For the second scene, focus on his grin, pile it over in action." Um, the stanza ends with, "I'll walk away out of lights," which kind of it continues to add on the stage play idea. But I don't there's a lot of lines in the middle that tell me this is through the lens of something larger than life. Like I said, could be a specific entity, it could be the personification of an ideal. I don't know, but that's really leading me to have a problem fully understanding the lyrics here. And Toumaï, that's not on you guys. I mean, maybe it is a little bit. I don't know. But lyrics just aren't my strong point to begin with. A lot of lyrics go over my head. I'd say that most of these lines are fairly straightforward. I'm just missing the connective tissue between them. So I'm putting that one on myself. I'm not a lyrics guy. I'm a music guy, right? I could spend 20 minutes breaking down a song, but lyrics, I might need some help with those. And that's where this is heading for me right now. Is I need a little bit of help understanding the specifics, but I think I get the gist of it. I don't quite understand how it works with the musical themes, but as usual, maybe it's not supposed to. Not every song is supposed to be conceptual. Sometimes it's just some music that sounds great with some lyrics, with a message, and you just mash them together, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with each other, so much so that it's just what the lyrics were and what the music is. Regardless, I absolutely love this track. Like I said, I've already written it down. I got a note. I got to put it in my calendar later so I can get the notification. March 1st, I'm going to be looking out for you guys. Probably on a Friday, right? All albums get released on Fridays. I'm gonna be looking for you guys. I need to hear this album when it drops. I'm sold. You got a new fan. Those are my thoughts on Toumaï's Walk in Abnormal. I don't even know how that works. Like the little understanding I had of the lyrics, I'm trying to pair that to the title. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. If you guys have any insight, Toumaï, if you want to comment on this and let me know exactly what your ideas were with the lyrics and maybe the title of the song, I'm all ears. I'm always down to be educated as well. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's going to be all links for Toumaï. If you want to find their social medias, their streaming platforms, whatever, make sure you head over to their YouTube page, like and subscribe. If you could, like and subscribe to this channel as well. That wraps it up for this video. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to check out some more music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.